They said I was just an old woman who could not face reality. They said my stories were made up, my dreams too big, my thoughts too strange. But they never asked what I had lived through. They never knew what I kept hidden behind my quiet smile. The day my daughter-in-law laughed and said I lived in a dream world, I simply looked at her and said nothing. Because the truth would have shaken her. There is a small island, surrounded by blue water, quiet, peaceful, mine, and it is time the world knew. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 68 years old. I live in a quiet town by the coast, in a house that has belonged to my family for generations. It is a modest place, white walls, green shutters, and a wooden bench in the garden where I drink my morning tea. The sea is close enough that I can hear it at night. When the wind is gentle, I open my window and listen to the waves until I fall asleep. Each morning, I rise early. My knees ache a little when I move, but I am thankful for every breath. I put the kettle on, feed my cat, Simon, and walk barefoot across the kitchen floor. I like the feeling of cool tiles under my feet. Some people rush through their mornings, but I do not. I take my time. Time is one of the few things I own fully. After breakfast, I write in my notebook. I do not use a computer. I prefer the feel of a pen, the sound it makes on paper. Sometimes I write about memories. Sometimes I write about the people I love. And sometimes I write about nothing in particular. Just thoughts. Just feelings. I have learned that even quiet thoughts deserve a place to live. I see my son, Marcus, once a week. He brings his wife, Amanda, with him. She is always dressed in perfect clothes, expensive, fitted, polished. She walks into my home like it is a museum, not a place filled with warmth and history. She smiles, but it is the kind of smile that does not reach the eyes. Marcus tries to make everyone happy. He is a good man, even if he forgets to call sometimes. He grew up in this very house, running through the halls with scraped knees and wild ideas. Now, he wears suits and speaks in short, tired sentences. I miss the boy he used to be. But I love the man he has become. Amanda. Well, Amanda and I do not have much in common. She does not like tea. She does not like cats. She once told me I should paint the walls a more modern color. She says things like that often. Small things, quiet jabs, as if she is trying to shape me into something else. I always smile and change the subject. On Sundays, they come for lunch. I cook the same meal every time: roast chicken, potatoes with rosemary, and my special carrot cake. It is a recipe from my grandmother. Amanda says she does not eat dessert, but I still bake the cake. Marcus always takes a second slice. That is enough for me. After they leave, the house is quiet again. I clean up, wash the dishes by hand, and listen to classical music on the radio. Simon curls up on the windowsill and watches the garden. I sit down in my chair, the one with the soft cushion and worn armrests, and I breathe. This is my life. It is simple. It is peaceful. And it is mine. Sometimes I hear people talk about loneliness as if it is a shadow that chases you. But I have made peace with silence. I find comfort in the little things: the sound of birds in the morning, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery down the street, the feel of sunlight on my hands when I water the flowers. There is no grand excitement here, no loud drama, just quiet days and gentle moments. And for a long time, I believed that was enough. But lately, something has changed. Not in the air, not in the weather, In the way Amanda looks at me. In the way Marcus avoids certain questions. In the way my own heartbeat seems to slow whenever I think about the past. I cannot explain it. Not yet, but I feel it. A shift. A silence that is not peaceful, but heavy. Still, I go on. I wake up. I make tea. I feed Simon. And I tell myself, this is just another normal day. But deep down, I know something is coming. And everything I thought I understood about my quiet life might not be so quiet after all. The change did not come with loud noise or broken glass. It came softly, like a door left open on a windy day. I did not notice it at first. It was in the way someone stood too still, the way a voice changed tone, the way a smile held back more than it gave. That Sunday, the sun was shining, but the air felt cool. I opened all the windows to let the breeze in. I wore my light blue dress, the one with the small flowers on the hem. It was a gift from my sister many years ago. She always said it brought out the color of my eyes. Marcus and Amanda arrived right on time. He carried a bouquet of daisies, and Amanda brought a small bag of something she said was organic bread. She placed it on the table like it was an offering. Is this the same roast chicken? She asked, not looking up. Yes, I said. I thought you both liked it. Amanda gave a small nod and walked toward the dining room. Marcus followed her, but he paused for a moment. His eyes met mine. He gave me a tired smile and rubbed the back of his neck. I knew that look. He had used it when he was a teenager. Just before telling me he had failed an exam or broken a vase, that kind of look carries weight. We sat at the table. The conversation was quiet. Amanda spoke about a new design project, something about minimalist interiors and Scandinavian themes. I nodded and listened, even though I did not really understand. The appeal of white walls and empty rooms. Marcus asked me if I needed anything fixed around the house. Not at the moment, I said. But thank you for asking. That should have been the end of it. But Amanda leaned forward and said something I will never forget. You know, Evelyn, sometimes I think you live in a dream world. The words were soft, but sharp. I felt my fork pause in the air. A dream world? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, she said, laughing a little. You know, this little house, your notebooks, your garden, it is all very sweet, but it is not real life. You could have moved closer to us. You could have sold this place years ago and done something more practical. Marcus stayed quiet. I looked at her carefully. She was not being cruel. She believed she was being helpful, but her words touched something in me, something old and buried. I did not answer. I just smiled gently and looked out the window. The sea was still there. The sky was blue. Simon jumped up onto the windowsill, stretching in the sunlight. After lunch, Amanda said she had to take a work call. She stepped outside with her phone pressed to her ear. Marcus stayed behind to help me with the dishes. Do you think I live in a dream world? I asked him softly. He did not answer at first. He rinsed a plate and placed it carefully in the rack. Then he looked at me. I think you live the way you want to live, he said. And that is not a bad thing. I watched his face. He was being careful, thoughtful. But something in his voice told me that he too had started to see me through Amanda's eyes. Later that evening, after they left, I walked around the house in silence. Every picture frame, every teacup, every soft blanket. I touched them all, as if trying to remind myself that they were real, that I was real. I sat on the bench in the garden and watched the wind move through the trees. I listened to the soft sound of the waves in the distance. I thought about what Amanda had said, about how easily someone can take your peace and name it something else, a dream world. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had created a soft place to live because the real world had once been too hard. But that evening, as the sun began to set, I felt something shift in my chest. A quiet, strange feeling. Something was changing. I did not know what it was, but I could feel it. I could feel something changing. The days that followed were quiet, but something inside me felt unsettled. It was like trying to walk with a stone in my shoe. Small, but always there. Amanda's words echoed in my mind more than I wanted to admit. I had lived in this house for almost 30 years. I raised Marcus here. I planted the garden with my own hands. I painted the kitchen walls after my husband passed, just to feel like something was changing. This was my world. It was not grand, but it was mine. So why did her words feel like they had scratched the surface of everything I built? On Wednesday morning, I walked into town for groceries. I greeted Mrs. Chambers outside the flower shop and waved to the postman. Everything looked the same, but I felt like I was walking through fog. People smiled. Birds chirped. But my thoughts were loud and heavy. I bought apples, tea, and the soft biscuits I knew Marcus liked when he was a boy. Old habits. They cling to us like shadows. At the counter, the cashier asked if I wanted a bag, and I stared for a moment before answering. I was lost in thought again. I could feel my confusion sitting just behind my smile. Back home, I set the groceries down and made a cup of tea. I sat by the window, the steam rising gently, and I tried to collect my thoughts. But they slipped away like water through fingers. Was I really out of touch? Was I wrong to find peace in the quiet? Had I closed myself off from the world too much? Did not have answers. Just questions that spun around and around. I looked at my bookshelf. It was filled with novels I had read again and again. I walked to the small study and opened one of my journals. I had not written anything new in months. Just scribbled thoughts here and there. As I stood there, I felt a strange pull, like I wanted to rewrite my memories to make them fit someone else's idea of what life should be. But that thought frightened me. Why was I doubting myself because of one careless comment? That night, I tried to sleep, but my mind would not rest. I kept replaying that lunch, the way Amanda spoke, the way Marcus looked away. I remembered every detail, the tablecloth, the faint smell of rosemary from the chicken, the way Simon curled up at my feet. I remembered how I smiled, even though something inside me sank. That was what I had done so often. I smiled through the sinking. In the darkness, I stared at the ceiling. My room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock. I thought of calling my sister, but it felt too late in the evening. Besides, I did not want to explain why I was feeling like this. I could not even explain it to myself. All I knew was that I felt confused. Confused about who I was. Confused about how others saw me. Confused about whether I had been living fully or hiding quietly. I wanted to believe I had made the right choices in life. But now, a single comment had shaken me. That should not have been possible, and yet it was. The next morning, I stood in the garden again. Dew clung to the petals, and the sky was soft with clouds. I watched the birds flutter at the feeder. And then I did something small, but different. I walked to the far end of the garden, where the tool shed stood. Inside was an old box filled with things from another time. Letters, photographs, receipts, little treasures from when Marcus was a child. I sat on the floor and opened the box. Dust danced in the air, and the smell of old paper filled my nose. There was a photo of me holding Marcus in front of the house, both of us smiling, my hair longer, my arms stronger. I stared at that photo for a long time. She said I lived in a dream world. But was it not a dream I had built with love, sweat, and time? Still, the confusion did not leave me. It settled quietly in my chest. Maybe I was not broken. Maybe I was simply waking up to something. Something uncomfortable. Something new. Something I did not yet understand. A few days later, Amanda called. Her voice on the phone was soft, lighter than usual. She asked how I was, and if Simon was still sleeping in his usual sunny spot by the stairs. I answered politely, but my tone was careful. I was not sure why she was calling. We had not spoken since that lunch. I was thinking, she said, pausing a little too long. Maybe you would like to come with me to the art fair next weekend. It was unexpected. Amanda had never invited me to something like that before. She usually went to those events with her sister or her old university friends. My first instinct was to say no, but instead I said, "Let me think about it." After we hung up, I stood in the hallway, staring at the phone. Part of me felt hopeful. Maybe this was her way of making peace. Maybe she had realized her comment was hurtful. But another part of me was cautious. What if this was just politeness? What if she still thought of me as foolish and out of touch? That night, I sat with my journal. I had not written in it for some time, but now the pen moved freely. I wrote down the words I could not say out loud. I want to trust her. I want to believe she sees more in me than just an aging woman with simple habits. I want to feel safe, in her company, not judged or unseen. The next morning, I called her back. "I will come with you," I said. Her voice brightened. "Wonderful," she replied. "It will be good for both of us." On the day of the fair, I wore my soft blue cardigan and the pearl earrings I had saved for special occasions. I brushed Simon once more, left him with plenty of water, and stepped outside to wait. Amanda arrived in her sleek silver car. As I got in, she complimented my earrings. "They are beautiful," she said. I smiled. It was a small kindness, but it felt like warmth in winter. The drive was quiet. At first, we spoke about the weather, a new cafe opening in town, and a book we had both read. It was polite, light, and pleasant. At the fair, we walked slowly between the tents. Bright colors, laughter, and the soft scent of roasted almonds filled the air. Amanda paused often to look at paintings and sculptures. She seemed truly at ease. At one point, she turned to me and said, "I know we do not always see things the same way, but I do admire how calm and steady you are." I looked at her, unsure what to say. Her words felt sincere. "I said something careless the other day," she continued, "at lunch. I hope you know I did not mean to hurt you." I nodded slowly. "I know," I said. And I meant it, even if a part of me was still healing. We spent the rest of the afternoon looking at handmade jewelry and small oil paintings. I even bought a tiny painting of a lighthouse. Amanda said it reminded her of strength in quiet places. I liked that. On the way home, she asked if I would like to come over next week to help her plan Marcus's birthday dinner. Again, I was surprised. "I would like that," I said softly. When I got home, I placed the lighthouse painting on the shelf near the window. Simon rubbed against my leg as I stood there, watching the light shift through the curtains. I felt a soft stir inside me. It was not quite peace, not quite joy, but something in between. Maybe trust was not something that arrived all at once. Maybe it came in small steps, in kind words, in quiet invitations, in moments where someone truly saw you. I still had doubts. I still felt unsure. But I wanted to believe Amanda's heart had opened, even a little, and I wanted to meet that opening with grace. Because even though pain makes us cautious, the desire to be seen and valued never fully leaves us. I wanted to trust her. And that was a beginning. The following week passed more gently than I expected. Amanda invited me over to help plan Marcus's birthday dinner. We sat at her kitchen table with recipe books, colored note cards, and a pot of peppermint tea. She seemed warmer, softer. I noticed the way she watched me as I suggested a few of Marcus's favorite childhood meals: grilled lemon chicken, rosemary potatoes, and the chocolate tart he once begged for every summer. She nodded along. She even smiled once or twice. I should have felt content. Relieved even. But instead, a strange tightness settled in my chest. Something felt off, though I could not name it. It was like standing in a sunny room while sensing a storm just beyond the glass. That evening, I went for a walk to clear my thoughts. The air was cool, filled with the scent of wet leaves and early lilac. I passed by the corner bookstore, where Clara, the owner, was stacking books in the window. I had known Clara for over 20 years. She had always been kind and sharp with her words, never cruel, but never careless. She waved me inside. "You look like you are chasing ghosts," she said with a gentle laugh. "Come, sit with me for a minute." I followed her to the back of the shop, where she poured 2 cups of cinnamon tea and motioned for me to sit. "I saw Amanda the other day," she said, stirring her cup. "She was with someone, a woman I did not know. They were standing outside the bank." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were searching mine. "I could not hear them, of course," she continued, "but Amanda looked, how do I say this, eager, almost nervous. She kept pointing to her phone. I only mention it because she seemed different." I took a sip of tea, pretending not to feel the flutter in my stomach. "Different how?" I asked. Clara tilted her head. "It may be nothing, but when Amanda looked up and saw me watching, she smiled too quickly, like someone who has something to hide." I sat very still. Clara reached across the table and touched my hand. "I know you want peace, Margaret, and I know how much you love Marcus, but do not ignore your own instincts just to keep the calm. Sometimes peace comes at too high a price." I nodded slowly. I did not want to believe anything was wrong, but Clara's words stayed with me like a shadow in the hallway. That night, I sat in bed with the lighthouse painting in my lap. I looked at it closely, at the small strokes of blue and gray, the calm strength of it standing alone in the storm. I remembered Amanda's tone at lunch 2 weeks ago. The words "dream world" still echoed in my mind. And yet, here she was now, inviting me to art fairs, asking me to help plan a birthday dinner. Was it possible she had changed so quickly, or was she hiding something? Simon jumped onto the bed and curled beside me. I placed a hand on his back, listening to the soft rhythm of his purr. I wanted to believe the best of her, but Clara's words had settled inside me. Do not ignore your instincts. For the first time in many years, I allowed myself to wonder, what if being kind had blinded me? What if I had spent too long trying to earn love from people who only offered it when they needed something? The questions scared me, but they also felt honest. Before I turned out the light, I reached for my journal and wrote just 2 lines. I hear a warning. I hope it is wrong, but I will not turn away from it. The wind pressed softly against the windows as I drifted into sleep, and, somewhere in the distance, I imagined the sound of waves against rock, steady, strong, and unafraid. I told myself the next morning that Clara was simply being cautious. She'd always been protective of me, especially since James passed. Maybe she had read too much into Amanda's expression. Maybe I had too. Still, the words she spoke followed me into the kitchen as I brewed my tea and buttered my toast. I turned on the radio, hoping the soft music would drown out my thoughts. It did not. When Amanda called later that day to confirm the birthday menu, her voice was unusually cheerful. "I just think he will love the rosemary potatoes," she said quickly. "And we can keep it simple. Maybe some fresh salad and sparkling cider," I agreed. I smiled even, I tried to match her energy, but I found myself listening to the spaces between her words, to the slight tension in her laugh, and the way she kept repeating, "Thank you for doing this." She had never thanked me for such things before. Still, I shook off the doubt. Maybe she really was trying. People could change. I knew that better than anyone. That afternoon, I went to the market. I picked up fresh herbs and vegetables, moving slowly through the aisles. When I reached for a bundle of carrots, I saw a woman I recognized, Teresa, Amanda's cousin. We had met only once at a family gathering. She had been kind to me then, even though we hardly spoke after. She spotted me and smiled. "Oh, Margaret," she said warmly. "How are you?" "I am well, thank you," I replied. "Just gathering ingredients for Marcus's birthday dinner." Her face changed, just slightly. It was a pause, barely a second. But I saw it. Then she said, "Oh yes, of course. Amanda mentioned something." She said it as though she had to remind herself to say it, as though it had slipped her mind. I nodded and moved on. But inside I felt a quiet tap, a whisper that said, "That was odd." Later, as I stood in the checkout line, I pressed my palm against my chest. My heart was not racing, but it felt tired, as though it had been holding back too many feelings for too long. When I got home, I set the groceries on the counter and sat in the kitchen, staring at the clock. I thought about everything Clara said. I thought about Amanda's sudden kindness. And I thought about Teresa's face when I mentioned the dinner. But then I told myself, again, that I was overthinking. I had spent too much of my life doubting people, wondering if they truly meant what they said. I did not want to live in that place again, so I pushed the thoughts down. I focused on the salad dressing. I sliced lemons. I arranged the carrots and herbs in little glass jars, just as Amanda liked them. I even pulled out my blue linen napkins, the ones James and I had used every spring when we hosted dinner for the neighbors. If Amanda wanted to be part of the family again, I wanted to make it easy for her. That night, as I set the table for practice, I looked around the dining room. It was quiet. The chairs stood still. The tablecloth was smooth and unwrinkled. Everything looked perfect, and yet I felt unsettled. I walked to the living room and stood before the mirror. I looked at myself the way I might look at a stranger. There I was, hair pinned up, cardigan folded neatly, eyes slightly tired. I wanted to believe I could return to the life I once knew. That love could be rebuilt. That family could be chosen again and again. So I whispered aloud, "You are doing the right thing." But a part of me, the part I was trying hard to ignore, whispered something else back. "Are you?" I turned off the lights, folded the napkins back into the drawer, and climbed the stairs. In bed, I stared at the ceiling until sleep took over. I tried to ignore the feeling. I truly did. But feelings do not go away just because we ask them to. The day of Marcus's birthday arrived with a golden sunrise and the soft promise of spring in the air. I woke early, my thoughts racing far ahead of me. I moved through the morning quietly, careful not to disturb the stillness of the house. Ironed the tablecloth again, even though it did not need it. I reheated the candles just a little so they would drip perfectly once lit. Everything had to be lovely. Not grand, not showy, just lovely. Because Marcus deserved that. Because family gatherings, even quiet ones, still mattered. Amanda arrived just after noon. She brought flowers, yellow tulips. "For the table," she said, placing them carefully in my hands. Her smile was wide, her tone overly sweet, but her eyes were something else. They were scanning, measuring. They looked at my hair, at the dishes stacked near the sink, at the casserole baking in the oven. And then they landed on my face again. "You have done so much," she said. I nodded and smiled. "I am glad to," I replied. But that look, it stayed with me. When Marcus and the others came in later, the house filled with laughter and voices and the clatter of shoes on tile. I handed out glasses of sparkling cider, passed around plates of rosemary potatoes and fresh salad. Amanda sat beside Marcus. She kept one hand on his arm. She laughed at everything he said. She called me Mom twice in front of everyone. Each time. I turned toward her with a smile, but each time I felt something tighten inside. It was the way she looked at me, not with kindness, not with warmth, but with calculation. I caught her watching me as I stood at the kitchen counter, wiping the edge of a dish. Her eyes followed me as I added more dressing to the salad, as I refolded a napkin that had slipped. She watched as though she were taking notes, and then, when I placed a bowl on the table and sat down, I saw her glance sideways at Marcus. Just a flicker. Just a moment. But it said something. I could not read it fully. But it was there. Later, as we cut the birthday cake and everyone clapped for Marcus, Amanda leaned toward me and whispered, "This is such a dream, is it not?" I looked at her. "A dream?" I asked softly. She smiled with her lips but not her eyes. "Yes, this whole place, so peaceful, so charming." I nodded. "Yes, it has always been peaceful." She nodded too. Then she added, "It must be hard, living all alone in such a big house. So many memories, and so much space." There it was. I looked at her. She did not flinch. I wanted to believe she was just making conversation. But the way she looked at me said more than her words ever could. She saw this house not as a home, but as a prize. She saw me not as a mother-in-law, but as an obstacle. I looked around the room. Marcus was busy helping his cousin open a bottle of cider. The children were laughing in the corner. No one noticed the moment, except me. I smiled gently and replied, "It is not the space that makes it lonely. It is the silence that follows when people forget how to speak kindly." She blinked. Just once. But her smile froze. After that, she turned away. The rest of the evening passed in a soft blur. We ate cake. We played music. I brought out photo albums and we looked at pictures of Marcus as a boy. Amanda said all the right things. But I watched the way she looked at the rooms, at the furniture, at the walls. She was not admiring them. She was evaluating them. She did not look at this house like someone visiting family. She looked at it like someone preparing to move in. When the night ended and the guests said goodbye, Amanda gave me a long, lingering hug. "Thank you again," she said softly. "This was truly beautiful." Her words were warm, but her eyes remained cold. That night, after the dishes were washed and the house returned to quiet, I sat alone in the living room, and I whispered to myself, "She is not looking at me the way family looks at each other. She was looking at me the way one looks at something they want." It had been 3 days since the birthday gathering. 3 days since Amanda had looked at me like I was no longer a person, but something to be moved aside. I could not shake the feeling. It followed me like a chill in the air that refuses to lift even when the sun is shining. I tried to busy myself with cleaning. I wiped down cabinets that were already spotless. I refolded linens in the hallway closet. I organized the spice rack alphabetically, then by color, then alphabetically again. But nothing could quiet the voice inside me. Ask her. Ask her what she meant. Ask her why she looked at you that way. So I did something I rarely do. I picked up the phone and called her. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Her voice was light, as always. Hello, Amanda. It is me, I said, steadying my breath. Oh, hi. Is everything all right? Yes. I hope so. I was wondering if you might come by. Just for tea. Nothing formal. There was a pause. Then she said, Of course, I can be there in an hour. I set the table slowly. Just 2 cups. No, sweets. I wanted the moment to feel simple. I wanted there to be space for the truth. When she arrived, she looked perfect. Hair brushed back neatly, a scarf wrapped delicately around her neck. She smiled at me, but I saw it again, that flicker of calculation behind her eyes. Thank you for coming, I said, motioning her toward the kitchen. Of course, I was curious, she said, sitting down. You sounded so serious on the phone. I poured the tea. We talked for a while. Small things, the weather, her new project at work. I let her speak. I let her settle in. Then I leaned forward slightly. Amanda, I said gently, I wanted to ask you something. She blinked. Yes? I looked into her eyes. I made sure my voice was calm, not accusing. I did not want anger. I only wanted honesty. Do you like me? I asked softly. She looked surprised. She laughed a little. Of course I do, she said quickly. I shook my head slowly. I do not mean polite conversation. I do not mean calling me Mom when others are listening. I mean, when no one else is watching. Do you like me? There was silence. She looked away, then back at me. I respect you, she said carefully. That is not the same thing, I replied. She sighed and folded her hands. Why are you asking me this? I took a deep breath. Because I have been watching how you look at me. Because I feel like I am being measured, and I do not know why. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. Are you accusing me of something? No, I said gently. I am asking you to tell me the truth. She sat back in her chair. Her face changed. The sweetness dropped from her voice. I think you live in a dream world, she said, her tone sharp now. You sit in this big old house holding on to memories. You pretend everything is fine, but things are changing. Marcus and I have plans. We want something more. I blinked. What do you mean? More. She tilted her head. You have this house, this land, and you do nothing with it. You live alone, with your books and your garden. You could sell it, move into a smaller place, help us with a down payment. I sat still. She kept going. You cannot keep holding on to the past, pretending like you are still the center of everything. You had your life. It is our turn now. My hands trembled slightly as I held the edge of the table. I looked at her, really looked, and then I said quietly, Thank you for your honesty. She stared at me, a little surprised by my calmness. You do not agree? She asked. I stood slowly. I will think about what you said, I replied, and I meant it, not because I was going to give her what she wanted, but because I had just seen her for who she truly was, and I needed time to understand what that meant, for me. As she left, she smiled again. But this time I smiled too, because something inside me had shifted. I was no longer afraid to ask, and I was no longer afraid of the answer. I barely slept that night, even though I lay still under my quilt, with the familiar scent of lavender on my pillow and the soft hum of the ceiling fan above. My mind would not rest. It was not Amanda's words alone that disturbed me. It was the way she said them. Calm. Cold. As if her plan had already begun. I stared up at the ceiling, my hands folded over my stomach, thinking of every moment I had shared with Amanda since she married Marcus. Had she always looked at me this way? Had I missed the signs? The air felt heavier than usual. I reached over to turn off the fan. The silence made the questions louder. What did she mean when she said I live in a dream world? Was she right? Was I clinging to memories that no longer served me? The next morning, I tried to return to my usual routine. I made a cup of tea. I watched the birds gather near the garden. I opened the windows to let in the morning light. But everything felt different. Even the sunlight on my walls looked unfamiliar. I walked from room to room, tracing my fingers along the wooden banisters, the picture frames, the edges of old furniture, passed down through generations. I paused at the framed photo of my parents on the mantel. Then another of Marcus when he was 6, smiling with a missing front tooth and a crayon drawing in his hand. These walls held my life. How could Amanda look at it and see only wasted space? By mid-morning, my hands were busy with chores again, but my mind kept drifting. I started dusting the bookshelf in the study, but found myself staring at an old leather-bound journal instead. It was my grandmother's. I had not opened it in years. I sat down slowly in her old rocking chair and turned to the first page. My dearest girl, the world may not always listen to you, but let it never be said that you did not listen to yourself. My throat tightened. I read those words again and again. I could almost hear her voice in the way they were written. Firm, loving, clear. She was a woman who survived 2 wars, raised 5 children, and lost her husband too soon. And she had still found joy in the smallest things. In lavender, in lemon cake, in dancing barefoot on the porch when the rain came down hard in summer. She had never cared what anyone thought of her life. She had lived it, fully, and with pride. I closed the book gently and stood up. I looked around the study, at the house, at all the things Amanda seemed to think were useless. Yes, maybe the world was changing. Maybe young couples needed different things. But that did not mean my life, my space, my history was a dream. It was real, and it had meaning. Still, I could not stop thinking about Amanda's expression, her certainty, her subtle challenge. It was as though she had been waiting for this moment, testing the waters, pushing boundaries to see how far she could go. And what frightened me most was Marcus. Where did he stand? Was he just going along with her ideas? Or did he truly believe that I had outlived my usefulness? Had I become a burden in my own home, in my own family? The thoughts followed me everywhere. I tried to distract myself with gardening, but I pulled weeds too roughly, tearing the roots. I tried to bake something sweet, but the sugar tasted bitter on my tongue. By evening, I sat alone on the back porch, watching the sky turn pink and gold. The wind stirred gently through the tall grass. In the distance, I could hear the low hum of traffic, the occasional bird call, and the steady thump of my own heartbeat. Still thinking, still questioning. I had spent so many years offering help, love, and stability. I had made sacrifices quietly. I had never asked for anything in return. But now I found myself wondering, had that been a mistake? Had I given too much and held too little for myself? I leaned back and closed my eyes. I could not stop thinking, and I knew this was just the beginning. The next day, the house was silent. Not the kind of silence that comforts you. Not the kind that comes after a long day, when the world finally rests and peace surrounds you. No. This was a different silence. One that echoed with things unsaid. One that felt like something had broken, even if no one had admitted it out loud. I woke up before sunrise. The sky outside my window was still dark. The birds had not begun their song yet. I sat at the edge of my bed for a long while, staring at the floor, listening to the sound of my breath and the ticking of the small clock on the wall. When I finally moved, my steps felt heavy. I did not open the curtains. I did not make tea. I just walked quietly through the hallway, feeling the weight in my chest that I could not name. It was not anger. Not yet. It was something quieter. Something that pressed against my ribs and made it hard to breathe. Pain, but not the kind that screams. This pain whispered. It crept into my thoughts and settled there, soft but sharp. I made my way to the living room and sat on the sofa. I did not turn on the television or pick up a book. I simply sat still, my hands folded in my lap, my eyes on the floor. I thought of Marcus, of Amanda, of how everything felt different now. A few days ago, I would have greeted them with warmth. I would have asked how their morning was, if they slept well, if they wanted breakfast. But today, I could not bring myself to say anything, because something inside me had shifted. I no longer felt like part of their plans. I heard movement upstairs, footsteps, doors opening and closing. The sounds of a normal morning, but nothing about it felt normal to me. And when Amanda came down the stairs and walked past me with only a short, "Good morning," I realized something. I was invisible, at least to her. And Marcus, my dear son, had begun to drift in the same direction. Later, I stood by the window and watched them leave. They walked to the car, talking to each other, smiling. They looked so young, so sure of themselves. Marcus opened the car door for Amanda, and she laughed at something he said.
Then they drove off, without even looking back at the house. At me. I stood there long after they had gone, staring at the empty driveway, my hand resting lightly on the curtain. I felt like a ghost inside my own life. I had always believed that love would be enough, that being kind, generous, and dependable would earn respect. But now I was beginning to wonder. Was I too gentle? Too quiet? Had I made it too easy for others to take me for granted? I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I stood by the sink, staring out the window. The garden looked tired. Weeds were beginning to show. The roses needed pruning. The wind had knocked over a flower pot during last week's storm, and I had not yet found the strength to fix it. Even my plants seemed to feel it. This quiet pain. I decided to step outside. I took my shawl from the coat rack and wrapped it around my shoulders. The sun had risen, but it gave no warmth. I sat on the bench near the garden, the same bench where Marcus once sat beside me as a little boy, telling me about his dreams. He wanted to be a pilot then. He wanted to fly high, above the clouds. And now, he had flown somewhere else entirely. Closed my eyes. A tear slipped down my cheek. I let it fall, not because I was weak, but because I was human, because the pain of being forgotten by someone you raised with love is a pain too deep to ignore. I did not cry loudly. I did not break. I simply sat there letting the wind touch my face, letting the sadness pass through me. A quiet pain, yes, but also the beginning of something else. Something I could not yet name. I did not sleep much that night. Even though my body felt tired, my mind would not rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face. I saw Amanda looking past me as if I were part of the furniture. I heard echoes of their laughter, the kind that excluded me, the kind that made me feel like a guest in my own home. By morning, I had made a decision. I needed an answer. Not just a feeling, not another guessing game. I needed someone to say it out loud, whatever it was they were. Hiding. Whatever it was they had already decided about me,
my place in their lives, and this house. The sun had risen. The sky was clear. I sat at the table with my hands folded. I waited until I heard the garage door open and the sound of Marcus coming back from his morning walk. He did not go often, but today he must have needed some space too. I heard him come in. His footsteps were calm, his whistle light. He set his keys on the shelf and walked into the kitchen. "Oh, good morning, Mom," he said with a soft smile. I looked at him. I did not smile. "Marcus," I said gently, "please sit down." He blinked, surprised. "Sure. Is everything all right?" I waited until he sat across from me. I studied his face. He looked a little tired, too. Maybe he had not slept much either. "I need to ask you something," I began, keeping my voice calm. "Of course," he said, his eyes now cautious. "I need you to be honest with me. I do not want to guess anymore. I do not want to keep feeling like I am unwanted in my own house." He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. "Please, let me finish." He nodded. "I have noticed changes, not just in Amanda, but in you too. You speak to me less. You leave without saying goodbye. You and Amanda speak in whispers when I walk into the room. You both act like I am too fragile to understand what is happening around me." He lowered his gaze. "And I keep wondering," I said softly, "have I done something wrong? Or have I simply become invisible to you?" There was a long silence between us. He looked up. His eyes looked pained, but also uncertain. "No, Mom," he said slowly. "You have not done anything wrong." "Then what is it?" I asked. "What are you both planning? What are you not telling me?" He sighed. He rubbed the back of his neck the way he always did when he was uncomfortable. "Amanda thinks—" He paused, searching for the right words. "She thinks it would be better if we had more privacy. She wants us to find our own place." I felt my heart press hard against my chest. "I see," I said. "But I have not agreed yet," he added quickly. "I told her we need to think about it." "You did not tell me." "I wanted to wait until we had a clear plan," he said. "I did not want to upset you. Keeping things from me is more upsetting," I replied quietly. "I am not a child. I deserve to know what is happening." He looked ashamed. "You are right," he said. "I should have told you." I stood up and walked to the window. My voice was calm, but my heart ached. This house is not just bricks and walls. It holds memories. It holds pieces of your childhood. I have kept it all these years, hoping you would one day return and feel at home. He stood too. "I know, Mom. I do feel at home here." "Then why do I not?" He had no answer. I turned to him. "I want you to be honest with me, Marcus. Not for Amanda. Not for politeness. For me. Are you planning to leave because she wants you to? Or because you want to?" He hesitated for a long time. Then he whispered, "Both." There it was. The truth. It stung. It pierced something soft inside me. But it was also strangely peaceful, because now I knew. Now I could stop pretending. And maybe now I could begin to heal. I spent the rest of the day in silence. After Marcus's quiet confession, there was little else to say. He had told me the truth, that he and Amanda were both thinking about leaving, about starting fresh, away from me. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry. It was simply honest. But that didn't make it easy. The house, which had once felt full, now felt echoey and uncertain. Every photo on the wall, every item on a shelf, looked like it belonged to a past that no one else wanted to remember. Still, I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because something inside me had shifted. I finally understood. I understood that what I was holding on to wasn't just the people. It was a version of them that no longer existed. Marcus was no longer the boy who ran through the hallway with jelly on his fingers. Amanda was no longer the bright-eyed woman who used to sit and ask me for recipes or family stories. And I was no longer just Mom or Helen. I was someone else now. That evening, I made tea. Jasmine, the kind I used to drink in the evenings when I worked late into the night reviewing restaurant proposals. I sat by the window, letting the warmth of the cup settle my hands. Outside, the trees swayed slowly in the wind, like they had all the time in the world. Marcus came into the room quietly. "Mom," he said, "I wanted to check on you." I nodded, gesturing to the seat across from me. He sat, folding his hands in his lap like he used to as a teenager when he was caught sneaking in after curfew. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I know," I replied, "and I'm not angry anymore, just sad." He looked down. "I never wanted to hurt you. I think I just got caught up in everything Amanda was saying. She wants space, a life that feels hers, and I thought maybe giving her that meant we had to pull away from you." "I understand," I said. "You love her. You want her to be happy." "Yes. And I want you to be happy too," I added more firmly. "But Marcus, happiness doesn't have to mean cutting away the people who raised you, who love you." Sighed deeply. "It's just all been confusing. Amanda feels like you judge her." I blinked. "Judge her?" "She thinks you don't respect her opinions or her choices." I smiled softly, almost bitterly. "Because I ask questions?" "Maybe. I think she feels smaller when she's around you." That surprised me. "I've never meant to make her feel that way," I said. "I've just tried to be myself, share what I know, offer help where I can." "I know. And I've told her that. But sometimes people feel intimidated by strength." Looked at him then, not just as my son, but as a man caught between two women trying to find space in the same story. "Marcus," I said gently, "I don't want to be in the way. If leaving helps you build your life, I won't stop you. But I won't disappear just to make someone else feel comfortable. I've spent too many years shrinking to fit inside other people's needs." He nodded slowly. There was respect in his eyes now, real understanding. "I get that," he said. "More than I used to." We sat in silence a few more minutes. The tea was still warm in my hands. Finally, he said, "You've always been strong, Mom. Maybe I forgot that." I gave a small smile. "Maybe you did, but that's all right. I forgot it too for a while." He stood and walked to me. Gently, he bent and kissed the top of my head, like he used to do when he was proud of something. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." And then he walked away. Not out of anger, not out of fear, just away. For now. And that's when I knew I could breathe again. Because I finally understood. Love does not always look the way we expect. Sometimes it comes in quiet truths. In letting go, in standing tall, even when the world around you shifts, and I was still standing. The next morning, I climbed into the attic. It wasn't planned. I had simply followed a feeling, the kind that whispers quietly but persistently in your chest. The attic had gone untouched for years, a dusty, cobwebbed place I avoided. Too many boxes, too many memories. But on that particular morning, something in me needed to remember. Or perhaps rediscover. The wooden ladder creaked as I pulled it down. Light from the hallway spilled up into the space like a hesitant visitor. I took a deep breath and climbed. The attic smelled like old paper and cedar. My father had lined it with cedar planks decades ago, insisting it would keep the moths away. I suppose he'd been right. Everything was still just as I had left it. Boxes labeled in black marker, old suitcases, and a collection of things that had once seemed too important to part with. I opened the first box labeled Kitchen 1986. Inside were my mother's recipe books, the covers fraying but the pages still perfectly intact. I smiled, thumbing through the notes she'd scribbled in the margins. Add more cinnamon for Marcus. That one brought a small ache to my chest. I set the box aside and opened another marked office. This one held papers, old financial statements, and restaurant business plans. There were newspaper clippings of interviews I'd done, some as the silent partner behind successful establishments, others as the quiet force no one credited. I had forgotten how much I'd accomplished in those years, forgotten how many ideas had started right here, in my hands. The third box was heavier. When I pried it open, something caught my breath. Photos. Dozens of photo albums stacked one over the other. They were filled with snapshots of birthdays, holidays, school concerts, first days of school, and sleepy Christmas mornings. Pictures of Marcus as a baby, of Amanda at her bridal shower, of me, smiling, tired, proud. And then, at the bottom of the box, a small velvet case. I opened it and stared. It was a necklace. Gold. Simple, but with a charm shaped like a compass. I had bought it for myself the day I signed the papers on my first restaurant investment. I remember thinking it would remind me to stay true to my path, even when the path wasn't clear. I had worn it every day for nearly 10 years. Then one day, I stopped. I couldn't even remember why. I held the necklace in my palm and closed my fingers around it. And suddenly, everything I had been feeling, the hurt, the distance, the loneliness, felt smaller, manageable. Because here in this attic, surrounded by pieces of the woman I used to be, I remembered something important. I hadn't disappeared. Had just been buried under years of caretaking and compromise, of being everyone's everything. I walked to the small attic window and looked out over the neighborhood. The sky was pale blue. A few birds circled above the rooftops. And below, life went on, slow, steady, unaware that a woman in the attic was reclaiming herself. I put the necklace on. It felt right. Later that afternoon, I brought down some of the albums and placed them on the dining table. Amanda was in the living room, and I called to her. "I thought you might like to see some old photos," I said. "Of Marcus. Of all of us." She looked up, surprised. Then, slowly, she walked over and sat across from me. One by one, I opened the albums, pointing to pictures, telling little stories. She listened. Sometimes she smiled. Once, she laughed. "These are beautiful," she said, tracing her finger over one of the pages. "Thank you," I replied. "They remind me that we've all changed, but we've all come from something strong." Amanda didn't say much, but before she stood up to leave the table, she said, "I'm glad you kept these." So was I, because what I found in the attic wasn't just old things. It was a thread, a lifeline back to the woman I had been, and the woman I still was. And as I sat there, the compass resting lightly against my chest, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Direction. It was a Thursday afternoon when the envelope arrived. I found it on the hallway table, tucked among utility bills and grocery flyers. Unlike the others, this envelope was thick, made of soft ivory cardstock, with my name handwritten in sweeping, careful script. No return address. Just Helen Moore in elegant black ink. I hesitated. Something about it felt ceremonial. I opened it slowly, slipping the contents into my hand. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a smaller card. The letter was brief. Dear Helen, you are warmly invited to attend the 20th anniversary celebration of Firestone Dining Group, honoring its founders, partners, and contributors. Your presence would mean the world. With gratitude, Elliot Crane, CEO Me Breath, Caught. Firestone. That was the first restaurant group I had ever invested in, nearly 2 decades ago. It had started as one location, a forgotten bistro near the train station, and grown into one of the most respected culinary brands in the state. I had been one of its earliest backers, a silent partner. I never asked for recognition. And yet, here it was. I turned over the smaller card. A golden emblem gleamed in the center, and beneath it, the details. Formal attire, RSVP by the 10th, venue, the Emerson Hotel Ballroom. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table, the paper trembling slightly in my hand. For so long I had been unseen. A helper, a grandmother, a background character in my family's story. But this invitation reminded me that in another world, one I had helped build, I was not invisible. I was remembered. Something special? Amanda asked, walking in with a laundry basket on her hip. I held out the card. An invitation. For a restaurant group I supported years ago. She scanned it, eyebrows rising. Firestone? That place Jacob always talks about. He says it's one of the coolest restaurant chains now. I smiled faintly. Yes, that one. She handed it back, her voice softer. Are you going to go? I think I might, I said. And for the first time in weeks, I meant it. That evening, I pulled out a few old dresses from the back of my closet. Most didn't fit quite the same anymore. My body had changed, softened, grown older. But I didn't mind. I had earned every line and curve. I ended up choosing a navy blue wrap dress I hadn't worn in years. It had a deep neckline, not immodest, but confident. I paired it with low heels and, without hesitation, the compass necklace. The ballroom shimmered under chandeliers the size of small cars. Waiters passed trays of sparkling drinks and delicate hors d'oeuvres. Conversations buzzed in every corner. Laughter echoed off marble floors, and glasses clinked in a kind of rhythmic celebration. I stood near the entrance at first, watching quietly. Then I heard my name. Helen Moore? A man in a dark suit approached. He had salt and pepper hair, a gentle smile, and eyes that crinkled at the corners. Elliot Crane. I'm so glad you came. I shook his hand, surprised. It's been a long time. He nodded. Too long. I've wanted to thank you for years. You believed in us when no one else would. You didn't just write a check. You came to meetings, offered ideas, asked the right questions. We wouldn't be here without you. I felt my throat tighten. I just wanted to help. You did much more than that, he said. Please come join us. We have a seat saved at the head table. The evening unfolded like a memory brought to life. People I hadn't seen in years approached me, embracing me, thanking me. Some called me Mrs. Moore, others just Helen. A few even remembered stories I had told during late-night brainstorm sessions over greasy takeout boxes and red wine. When it came time for the speeches, Elliot stood at the podium and gestured toward me. This woman, he said, reminded us what vision looked like, what faith looked like, and what quiet strength can accomplish. Please join me in thanking Helen Moore. I stood as the applause washed over me. Not for ego, but because I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Later on the ride home, I stared out the window and thought of Marcus, of Amanda, of Jacob, of all the times I had been called just a retiree. They didn't know the whole story, but now I did. and I was ready to write the rest. The morning after the celebration, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The invitation, the evening, the unexpected recognition, all of it had stirred something deep inside me. It was as if a fog had lifted. I felt a quiet strength, growing slowly but surely. I made my way to the kitchen, where sunlight filtered softly through the window. Marcus was there, sipping his coffee and scrolling on his phone as usual. The silence between us was comfortable, but cautious. I knew that the dinner with his family last week had left many unspoken words hanging in the air. But I also knew that some things could not be ignored forever. "Marcus," I said, breaking the quiet. He looked up, eyebrows raised. "Yes?" "I went to that event last night." His eyes narrowed. "The Firestone anniversary?" I nodded. "Yes. It was important." Did not say anything for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, a little tight, but real. "I am glad you went." "I was invited," I said softly. "They remembered me, Marcus. All these years I thought I was invisible. But I am not." He leaned back, thoughtful. "You have always been more than anyone gives you credit for." His words struck a chord. For so long I had felt invisible, ignored by my own family. It was painful. But hearing him say that gave me hope. Maybe things could change. That day, I received a message from Amanda. "Mom, can we talk? I feel like we have a lot to clear up." I smiled at the screen. "Of course." When Amanda came over later, the house felt warmer. We sat in the living room, the soft hum of the city outside providing a calm backdrop. "I want to say I am sorry," she began. "For everything. For the way I acted when I did not understand your choices. For doubting you." I reached out and held her hand. "Thank you, Amanda. That means more than you know." She hesitated, then continued. "I realize now how strong you have been, and how much you have done behind the scenes. I was wrong to judge you." Tears came to my eyes. "I know. Sometimes people judge because they are scared. But it is never too late to understand." Amanda smiled through her tears. "I want to learn from you." In that moment, I felt a connection growing between us, one that was built on honesty and respect. It was healing. Later that afternoon, Jacob called. His voice was quieter than usual. "Grandma, I heard about the party. They talked about you," he said. "Yes," I replied. "It was unexpected." "Can we talk sometime? I want to know more about you, the real you." My heart softened. I would like that. The rest of the day passed slowly, filled with small but meaningful moments. I realized that my journey was not just about being recognized by strangers or old friends. It was about rebuilding the bridges with my family, about opening doors I had closed too long ago. That night, as I prepared for bed, I looked at the compass, necklace resting on my dresser. It had always been a symbol of guidance for me. Now, it felt like a promise to myself to keep moving forward, no matter how hard it might be. Before I fell asleep, I whispered quietly, "I am ready." Ready to face the past, ready to embrace the future, ready to be seen, truly seen, by those I love. The day after my conversation with Amanda felt like a gentle new beginning. I woke up early, the sunlight spilling softly through the curtains. The quiet of the morning was soothing, and I felt a strange mix of hope and nervousness inside me. There was so much to say, and I knew that healing would come only through honest words. Amanda arrived right on time, carrying a small bouquet of flowers. She smiled shyly, and I could see a new tenderness in her eyes. We sat in the living room, the air calm but charged with emotion. "I want to start by saying thank you," Amanda said quietly, "for being patient with me, even when I was harsh." I reached for her hand and held it gently. "Thank you for being brave enough to come here and talk." She took a deep breath and began to speak. "I have been thinking a lot about what you told me, about your life, your struggles, and your dreams. I realize now how much I misunderstood you." Her words touched me deeply. For years I had felt invisible, dismissed by the people I loved most. But now, a small bridge was forming between us, built on truth and understanding. "I want to know more," Amanda said. "Tell me about your island. How did you come to own it? Why did you keep it a secret?" I smiled softly, remembering the quiet days I spent there, the freedom it gave me. "It is a place I bought years ago, a place where I could be myself. It is not just land or a house. It is a symbol of hope and strength for me." Amanda listened carefully, her eyes wide with wonder. "I never knew you had such a secret life." "It was not always a secret," I explained. "But I did not want to burden anyone with it. I needed a space to heal, to find my own power." She nodded slowly. "I understand that now. I wish I had been more supportive. I want to be part of your life, the real life, not just the surface." Her words brought tears to my eyes. I realized that this moment was a turning point. The past could not be changed, but the future was ours to shape. We talked for hours, sharing stories and feelings we had kept hidden for too long. Amanda spoke about her own fears and mistakes. I shared my hopes and the lessons I had learned. The conversation was not easy. There were moments of silence, moments of pain, but also moments of laughter and warmth. It was real. It was healing. Later, Amanda surprised me by suggesting we visit the island together. "I want to see where your dreams live," she said with a smile. I agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Taking this step together felt like a promise to build something new, based on trust. Before she left, Amanda hugged me tightly. "Thank you for letting me in. I want to be a better daughter, and I want us to have a better relationship." I held her close, feeling the weight of years lifting. That is all I ever wanted. After she left, I sat quietly, thinking about how far we had come. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. That evening, Marcus came home. The house felt different, lighter, more open. I shared with him some of the conversation I had with Amanda. He listened carefully and nodded. "I am proud of you," he said softly. "It takes courage to open your heart like that." I smiled. "It takes courage to listen." The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful changes. Amanda and I made plans to visit the island together. We talked more openly, and the walls that had separated us began to crumble. I found myself looking forward to the future rather than dwelling on the past. The pain was still there, but it was no longer a heavy burden. It was part of the story, a story of survival and growth. Late at night, I would sit by the window, watching the stars. I thought about the journey I had taken, from feeling invisible to being seen, from silence to conversation, from pain to healing. I whispered to myself, "This is only the beginning." The decision to say goodbye was not easy. It felt like closing a chapter I had hoped would never end, but deep inside, I knew it was necessary. Sometimes saying goodbye is not about giving up. It is about making space for healing, for growth, and for peace. That morning, the house was quiet. Amanda and I had spent the night talking about the changes we wanted to make. Yet, despite our efforts, I realized that some parts of the past could not be repaired right now. Some wounds needed time to heal on their own. I sat by the window with a cup of tea, feeling the warmth against my hands. The sun was gentle, and the garden outside was blooming with soft pink roses. It reminded me that life goes on, even when it feels heavy. I thought about the life I once knew, the hopes I had carried, the trust I had lost, and the trust I was trying to rebuild. Saying goodbye was not about forgetting these things. It was about accepting them and moving forward. Amanda came into the room quietly. Her eyes held a mixture of sadness and understanding. "Are you sure about this?" she asked gently. I nodded. "I need to say goodbye, Amanda. Not forever, but for now. We both need space to grow, to heal." She reached for my hand, and I squeezed it softly. "I will always be here when you are ready." The words felt like a promise, a thread connecting us even in separation. Later that day, I packed a small bag and decided to stay at a nearby inn for a few nights. I needed to step away from the house, from the memories that filled every corner. I needed to find myself again. The inn was quiet and peaceful. The room had a large window with a view of the sea. I spent hours sitting there, watching the waves roll gently onto the shore. The sound was calming, like a soft lullaby. I allowed myself to cry. The tears were not just for the pain, but also for the release, for the letting go of what could not be changed. In that moment, I understood that goodbyes are not always sad. Sometimes, they are a chance to breathe, to reset, and to prepare for new beginnings. The days passed slowly. I wrote letters to myself, reminding me of my strength and my worth. I made plans for the future, small steps to rebuild my life on my own terms. One afternoon, I took a long walk along the beach. The sun was warm on my face, and the breeze carried the scent of salt and freedom. I felt lighter, as if the weight I had carried was beginning to lift. I thought about the island, my secret refuge, the place where I could be whole. I promised myself that I would return there soon, not to run away, but to find clarity and peace. When I finally went back home, the house felt different. It was still filled with memories, but it also held new possibilities. I cleaned the rooms carefully, letting the fresh air in and opening the windows wide. That night, I sat by the fireplace and looked through old photo albums. I smiled at the pictures of happier times and allowed myself to remember without pain. Realized that saying goodbye was not the end. It was a step on a longer journey. A journey of healing, forgiveness, and self-love. I sent a short message to Amanda, letting her know I was back. She replied with warmth and kindness. We agreed to take things slowly and give each other the space we needed. The experience taught me an important lesson. Sometimes, loving someone means knowing when to step back. It means trusting that time and distance can heal wounds that words cannot reach. In the quiet moments, I found a new kind of strength. Not the loud, forceful kind, but the gentle, steady kind that comes from within. I understood that I did not need to rush. I did not need to fix everything at once. Life is not a race. It is a series of small steps, some forward, some back, all part of the process. As I prepared for bed that night, I whispered a promise to myself. I will be patient. I will be kind. I will keep moving forward. And with that, I felt a calmness settle over me. A calmness that carried hope. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. I have learned this slowly, over quiet days and still nights. Now, as I sit here in my living room, I feel the calm that comes with solitude. I am alone now, but I am not empty. Instead, I am full of thoughts, feelings, and a growing sense of peace. At first, the silence was difficult. The absence of constant noise, chatter, and demands felt strange. I missed the voices of family and friends. I missed the comfort of knowing someone was near, but gradually, the quiet became a place of rest. I noticed how often I had been distracted before, trying to fill my time and mind with other things. Now, I have the space to listen, truly listen, to myself. My thoughts come freely. My emotions surface naturally. I do not push them away anymore. In the early mornings, I sit by the window with a warm cup of tea. The world outside wakes slowly, the light soft and gentle. Birds sing quietly, and the air smells fresh. These moments are precious. They remind me that every day is a new beginning. I have started to write again. My journal has become a friend. I write about my memories, my dreams, and my fears. I write about the pain of loss and the hope for healing. Putting my feelings on paper helps me understand them better. Sometimes, I reread old entries. They show me how far I have come. They reveal patterns I want to change and lessons I have learned. Writing has become a way to hold my story in my own hands. I also spend time walking outdoors. Nature offers comfort. The gentle rustling of leaves, the warmth of sunlight on my skin, and the steady rhythm of my footsteps all soothe my soul. In these moments, I feel connected to something larger than myself. Being alone has taught me to enjoy my own company. I watch movies I like, cook meals just for me, and explore new hobbies. These small acts of self-care are powerful. They remind me that I deserve kindness, even from myself. At times, loneliness does creep in. It is a quiet ache that visits unexpectedly. When it happens, I do not ignore it. Instead, I welcome it as a messenger, inviting me to be gentle and patient with myself. I have also come to understand the difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is a choice. Isolation feels imposed. I choose to be alone now because it is what I need. It is a step toward healing, not a punishment. In this solitude, I reflect on my relationships. Some have faded, and some are waiting to be renewed. I realize that I do not need to hold on to what no longer serves me. I can let go with love and gratitude. My family remains a complex part of my life. Though we are apart, I wish them well. I hope for peace between us someday. But for now, I focus on building my own foundation. This time alone also helps me see my own strength. I recognize how much I have endured. I survived betrayal, disappointment, and heartache. Each challenge left marks, but it also made me more resilient. I remember the moment I decided to say goodbye. It was painful, but necessary. It was the first step in reclaiming my life. Now, I stand taller, not because my path has been easy, but because I chose to keep walking. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at small things, a beautiful sunset, a kind word from a stranger, or a memory that makes me laugh. These moments bring light into my days. I understand now that being alone is a gift. It allows me to hear my own voice clearly. It gives me the chance to discover who I truly am, beyond roles and expectations. I am not defined by others' opinions or judgments. I am not limited by past mistakes or misunderstandings. I am free to create my own story, one day at a time. As evening falls, I light a candle and sit quietly. The flickering flame reminds me of hope, a steady light in the darkness. I feel grateful for this time of reflection and growth. Being alone now is not loneliness. It is a peaceful space where I can heal, dream, and prepare for what comes next. It is a place where I find myself again. I am learning to love this version of me, imperfect, strong, and growing. This is not the end, it is a new beginning. Time changes us in ways we often do not see right away. I am not the same woman I was months ago, or even weeks ago. Inside me, something has shifted. It is a quiet strength, a deeper understanding of who I am and what I can endure. This new self is both fragile and powerful. I remember the days when I felt lost and unsure. Every step felt heavy, and every decision felt confusing. I thought I would never find my way back to peace. But slowly, day by day, I began to change. One morning, I woke up and noticed something different. I felt calm instead of anxious. I felt hopeful instead of doubtful. It was not a sudden change, but a gentle unfolding, like a flower opening to the sun. This change did not come from outside. It came from within me. I started to listen more to my inner voice, the one that tells the truth about what I need and who I want to be. I began to trust myself again. I learned that healing is not a straight line. Sometimes I moved forward. Sometimes I took a step back. But with each day, I grew stronger. I stopped blaming myself for the past and started to accept it. I also realized that I am not responsible for other people's happiness or mistakes. This was a hard lesson to learn. For so long, I tried to fix things that were beyond my control. Now, I understand my limits. My relationships with family remain complicated. Some days are easier than others. I feel sadness when I think about the distance between us. But I no longer carry that sadness as a heavy burden. Instead, I hold it gently, like a fragile flower. I have begun to set boundaries. Saying no feels strange at first, but it is necessary. I deserve respect and kindness. I will not accept anything less. This is a new way of loving myself. I also discovered new interests and passions. I started painting again, something I loved as a young woman, but had set aside. The colors and brush strokes give me joy and a sense of freedom. These creative moments remind me that I am more than my past or my pain. I am a whole person with dreams, talents, and a bright future. This realization fills me with hope. One important change is how I see myself. I used to think I was weak because I asked for help. Now, I know that asking for help is a sign of courage. It means I am strong enough to admit my needs. I also stopped comparing myself to others. Each person has their own journey. I focus on mine, with kindness and patience. This helps me grow without judgment. My daily routine has shifted too. I take time to meditate, to breathe deeply, and to appreciate small moments. These practices keep me grounded and connected to myself. I am learning to forgive not only others, but also myself. Forgiveness is not easy, but it frees the heart. It allows me to move forward without carrying old wounds. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see a woman I admire. She has faced storms and stood tall. She carries scars, but they are part of her beauty and strength. I am not perfect, and I do not have all the answers. But I am proud of the woman I am becoming. I embrace my imperfections as part of my story. The future is still uncertain, but I no longer fear it. I face it with open arms and an open heart. I know challenges will come, but I am ready to meet them. I am also more patient with others. I understand that everyone has their struggles. This empathy deepens my connections and brings more kindness into my life. My solitude has taught me many lessons. I have learned to be my own best friend and greatest supporter. This self-love is a foundation I will build on for the rest of my life. I find joy in simple things. A warm cup of tea, a good book, the sound of rain on the window. These moments remind me that happiness is found in everyday life. I am grateful for the journey, even the painful parts. They have shaped me into a stronger, wiser woman. I carry this gratitude in my heart each day. Now, when I think about the future, I do so with excitement. I look forward to new experiences, new friendships, and new dreams. The possibilities feel endless. I am not the same woman who started this journey. I am more. I am whole. I am free. Sometimes, when everything feels dark and heavy, all it takes is a small light to begin to change the night. That small light can be a kind word, a gentle smile, or a quiet moment of peace. For me, it came when I least expected it, during a simple walk in the park on a cool spring afternoon. After many weeks of feeling tired and lost, I decided to take a break from my usual routine. I wanted to clear my mind and breathe fresh air. The sky was soft blue, dotted with fluffy white clouds. The birds were singing their gentle songs, and the breeze was cool against my skin. It was a perfect day to find a small light. As I walked slowly along the path, I noticed a small child playing with a puppy. The child's laughter was pure and joyful. Watching them, I felt a warmth inside me that I had not felt for a long time. It was as if that laughter and innocence were a tiny spark, lighting a candle inside my heart. I sat on a nearby bench and let myself simply be present. I watched the sunlight dance on the leaves of the trees. I heard the soft rustle of the wind. I felt my heartbeat slow down, and my mind quiet. In that quiet, I felt a small light grow inside me, a flicker of hope. It was not loud or bright, but it was steady and real. That little light reminded me that even after the darkest nights, the sun always rises. I thought about how often we wait for big moments to change our lives. We expect huge events or dramatic changes. But sometimes, change comes softly and quietly, in small moments of beauty and peace. This small light became a guide for me. It helped me see that healing and happiness do not always come all at once. They come in tiny steps, little moments that add up over time. After that day, I started looking for small lights in my daily life. I noticed the way the morning sun streamed through my window. I savored the taste of my favorite tea. I smiled at strangers and received smiles back. These simple moments became sources of comfort and strength. I also began to open my heart a little more to others. I reached out to an old friend I had lost touch with. We talked about our lives and shared laughter. That connection felt like another small light, brightening my path. At the same time, I continued to care for myself. I practiced gentle kindness, reminding myself that it was okay to rest and to take things slowly. I learned to celebrate small victories, a good day, a peaceful moment, or a kind word from someone. This small light also helped me face fears that had seemed so big before. I felt more courage to try new things, to speak my truth, and to stand firm in my decisions. I realized that strength is not about never feeling afraid, but about moving forward despite fear. One evening, I sat by my window and watched the stars appear in the dark sky. Each star was a tiny point of light, shining steadily across the vast darkness. I thought about how those stars, though small, create a beautiful, endless sky. That thought brought me comfort. I understood that even if my light seemed small, it was part of something bigger. I was not alone. Many others were also lighting their own small candles in the dark. I also saw how my small light could inspire others. When I smiled despite my struggles, I noticed others smiling back. When I shared my story gently, someone listened and felt less alone. This gave me a new purpose, to be a small light in the lives of those around me. This moment of clarity was a turning point. It reminded me that no matter how hard life gets, there's always a small light waiting to guide us. We only need to notice it, embrace it, and let it grow. From that day on, I promised myself to cherish the small lights, to be patient with the slow journey of healing, to be gentle with my heart and with others, to never underestimate the power of small moments. I learned that hope is not a distant dream, but a quiet presence, always near. It is the small light that helps us keep walking when the path is uncertain. So even when sadness or doubt return, I remember that small light inside me. I breathe deeply and let it shine a little brighter. I tell myself that I am strong enough to face whatever comes next. This small light has changed me. It has given me a new way to see the world, not as a place full of darkness, but as a place where light can always be found. I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but I am ready to meet it with open eyes and an open heart. I will carry this small light with me as a beacon of hope and love. And if you are listening to this story now, I hope you find your own small light. It may be hidden in a simple smile, a kind word, or a quiet moment of peace. Hold on to it. Let it guide you. Because sometimes the smallest light can brighten the darkest night. Starting over is not easy. It feels like stepping onto a new path without knowing where it will lead. After so much pain and confusion, I was not sure I had the strength to begin again. Yet, deep inside, a quiet voice told me that this was my time to heal and grow. I decided to create new routines that focused on caring for myself. Before, I often put others first, ignoring my own needs. Now, I wanted to change that. I needed to learn how to be kind to myself, to listen to my body and mind, and to find joy in simple things. My mornings became my special time. I started waking up a little earlier, just to enjoy the quiet before the day began. I brewed a cup of tea and sat by the window. Watching the world wake up around me gave me a sense of calm and hope. I also made a promise to move my body every day. Exercise was not about losing weight or looking a certain way. It was about feeling alive and strong. Sometimes I walked slowly in the park. Other days, I practiced gentle stretches at home. Each movement helped me feel more connected to myself. I began writing in a journal each night. This was a safe place where I could express my feelings without judgment. Writing helped me understand my emotions better. It also reminded me of the small victories I had each day, moments of peace, kindness, or courage. Cooking became another way to care for myself. I started experimenting with simple, healthy recipes. Preparing meals was a way to nourish my body and soul. I found joy in choosing fresh ingredients and tasting new flavors. Cooking was no longer a chore, but a gift to myself. Socially, I took small steps to reconnect with people. I reached out to old friends and made new ones in my community. I joined a book club and a local art class. These activities helped me feel less alone and gave me a chance to share laughter and stories. At first, these changes felt strange. It was hard to break old habits. Some days, I felt tired and wanted to give up. But I reminded myself that beginning again is a process. It takes time, patience, and love. One of the most important lessons I learned was to be gentle with myself. I stopped blaming myself for the past or feeling guilty about my needs. Instead, I chose to forgive and to move forward with kindness. I also learned to set boundaries. I understood that not everyone would understand or support my new path. Some people wanted me to stay the same, to fit their expectations, but I realized that my happiness mattered more than pleasing others. This new beginning was not about forgetting the past. It was about honoring my story and choosing how I wanted to live now. I felt a growing sense of freedom as I stepped away from old patterns of pain and doubt. Each day, I felt a little stronger and a little more hopeful. I found that new routines gave my life structure and meaning. They helped me build a foundation of self-love and confidence. I also discovered that beginning again means opening my heart to new possibilities. I started dreaming of things I had once thought impossible, traveling, learning new skills, and sharing my story with others. Slowly, I found myself smiling more often. I laughed at small things and enjoyed quiet moments of beauty. These simple joys became a part of my new life. One day, as I walked through the park, I realized how far I had come. The sadness was still there sometimes, but it no longer controlled me. I had learned to carry it with grace, alongside hope and courage. Beginning, again, was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of strength and resilience. It showed that even after hardship, the human spirit can heal and grow. I knew the road ahead might still have challenges, but I felt ready to face them. I trusted myself and my small light to guide me. This new chapter was mine to write. I could choose the words, the pace, and the path. It was a gift to create a life filled with meaning, love, and peace. If you are listening to this story and feel unsure about your own new beginnings, I want you to know that it is okay to take small steps. You do not have to do everything at once. Each gentle choice you make brings you closer to healing. Remember to be patient and kind to yourself. Celebrate the little moments and trust that they will lead you to bigger changes. Beginning again is a brave and beautiful act. It shows that you have survived and that you are ready to live fully, with an open heart. So, take a deep breath and step forward gently. Your new life is waiting, one small step at a time. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Just as I was settling into my new routines and beginning to feel stronger, he appeared again. He tried to come back into my life. At first I was shocked. I did not know if I should open the door to him or keep it firmly closed. The past was still fresh in my heart. The pain, the betrayal, the silent moments. They all whispered caution. He called me more than once. His voice was soft, almost apologetic. He said he wanted to talk, to explain, to fix things. But I was unsure if I wanted to listen. Could I trust him again? Our first meeting after the long silence was awkward. We sat in a small cafe, the space between us filled with unsaid words and memories. He looked tired, and there was sadness in his eyes. I wondered if it was real or just an act. He spoke carefully, choosing his words with caution. He said he had made mistakes and understood now how much he had hurt me. He wanted to make amends, to be better. I listened quietly. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me feared being hurt again. My heart was a battlefield of hope and doubt. He asked if we could try to rebuild trust, slowly and gently. He said he was willing to do whatever it took. But I knew that trust, once broken, was not easy to fix. I did not say yes or no. I needed time. I told him that healing was not a straight path, and sometimes it took longer than expected. After that day, I felt a mix of emotions. I wanted to protect my heart, but also wondered if people could truly change. I thought about all the times I had forgiven before, and how often I had been disappointed. He sent messages now and then, simple greetings, or memories from the past. Each time, my phone made a sound that startled me. I asked myself if I should reply or ignore. Friends warned me to be careful. They said he might be pretending, that his timing was too convenient. I listened, but my feelings were my own. I began to notice small things about him. His patience, his kindness in words, the effort to understand my feelings. Yet, I remained cautious. Actions mattered more than words. One evening, I caught myself thinking about him unexpectedly. It was not a longing, but a reflection. I wondered if we were both different people now. I realized that people do change, but only if they want to. Change must come from within, not from fear or need. I talked with a close friend about my feelings. She reminded me to listen to my heart and to trust my instincts. She said that forgiveness could be a gift, but it did not mean forgetting or returning to old pain. I decided to meet him one more time, not to decide our future, but to understand myself better. We walked in a quiet park, the autumn leaves falling around us. The air was crisp and clear. He spoke honestly about his regrets and hopes. I shared my fears and boundaries. We both listened without judgment. That day, I felt a new kind of respect for myself. I was not the same woman who had once been hurt. I was stronger, wiser, and ready to protect my peace. I knew that saying yes to him again was not the answer. My answer was to choose myself first. Sometimes, people come back not to stay but to teach us something important. In his return, I learned about forgiveness, boundaries, and the power of self-love. I felt proud that I could listen without losing myself. I could show kindness without inviting harm. I could hold space for him without giving up my strength. As the days passed, I continued my new routines and focused on my growth. I kept the door open but at a distance. I allowed myself to hope, but only gently. He tried to come back, but I was different now. I did not need him to complete me or to define my happiness. I was whole on my own. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember that it is okay to feel confused. It is okay to take time. Your heart is precious, and it deserves care and respect. You can listen without losing yourself. You can forgive without forgetting. You can choose your peace above all. Sometimes the bravest thing is to say no, even when it is hard. Saying no to protect your heart is an act of love for yourself. He tried to come back, and I met him with honesty and grace. I chose my path with courage and clarity. And in that choice, I found my true strength. I feel different now. Not just on the surface, but deep inside my heart and mind. The experiences I have lived through have changed me. They have shaped me into a new person, someone stronger and wiser than before. I remember how I used to react to hurt and disappointment. I would feel lost and confused. I would want to run away or hide. But now, I face my emotions with calmness and understanding. I do not try to ignore pain or pretend it does not exist. Instead, I allow myself to feel and learn from it. This change did not happen quickly. It took time, patience, and effort. I spent many days reflecting on my past and my feelings. I asked myself difficult questions. What do I want from life? What do I deserve? How can I protect my peace? I also learned the importance of boundaries. Before, I might have allowed others to treat me poorly because I feared being alone or rejected. Now, I know that setting limits is not selfish. It is a way to respect myself and teach others how to treat me. I noticed how my relationships have changed as well. I no longer seek approval or validation from people who do not value me. I surround myself with those who lift me up and support my growth. I am careful about who I let into my inner world. When I look in the mirror, I see a woman who has survived storms and come out stronger. I see someone who has learned to love herself, flaws and all. That love is not perfect or easy, but it is real and steady. I also understand the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing hurt. It is about freeing myself from the burden of anger and pain. When I forgive, I release the hold that past wounds have on me. This makes space for healing and happiness. Sometimes I catch myself comparing my old self to who I am now. The difference is clear. I am more patient, more confident, and more peaceful. I do not rush into decisions or let emotions control me. Instead, I listen to my intuition and act with wisdom. I also feel more connected to my dreams and passions. I no longer hide my desires or think they are unrealistic. I pursue what brings me joy and fulfillment, even if it means stepping outside my comfort zone. This new version of me is not perfect. I still have moments of doubt and fear, but I face them with courage and kindness. I remind myself that growth is a journey, not a destination. Being different now means I have the strength to say no when something does not serve me. It means I can walk away from situations that drain my energy. It means I choose my well-being over pleasing others. I also find joy in small things. A warm cup of tea, a quiet morning walk, the sound of birds singing. These moments remind me that life is beautiful, even in its simplicity. My family has noticed the change too. Some are surprised, others are proud. I do not need everyone to understand me, but it feels good to be seen for who I truly am. I realize that my story can inspire others who feel stuck or lost. If I can change and grow, anyone can. It is never too late to find your strength and rewrite your story. I want to share a message with you, my listener. You are not alone in your struggles. You have the power to change your life. Trust yourself, be patient, and keep moving forward. Remember, being different is a gift. It shows that you have learned, healed, and grown. Embrace it with pride and hope. As I continue on my journey, I carry this new strength with me. It guides my choices and shapes my future. I am different now, and that difference is my power. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gives you courage to face your own challenges and believe in your inner strength. Choosing myself was not an easy decision. For many years, I put others first. I thought that was what I should do. As a mother, a wife, a daughter, I believed that my happiness was less important than theirs. I believed that my dreams could wait. But after everything I had been through, I understood that I could not live that way anymore. I realized that if I did not choose myself, no one else would. It was time to stop feeling guilty about my needs and desires. It was time to care for my heart as much as I cared for others. The moment I made this choice, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear, because it was unfamiliar to put myself first. Relief, because it was a breath of fresh air to honor my own feelings. I began to say no to things that drained me. I started to say yes to things that brought me peace. Choosing myself meant setting clear boundaries. I stopped answering calls or messages when I felt overwhelmed. I allowed myself quiet time without explanation. I declined invitations that did not make me happy. At first, this felt selfish. But slowly, I understood it was self-respect. I also chose to forgive myself. I forgave myself for the years I spent trying to please others. I forgave myself for not speaking up sooner. I forgave myself for the mistakes I made along the way. Forgiveness helped me release the weight of regret and shame. With this new mindset, I began to take better care of my health. I ate nourishing food, went for walks, and practiced gentle yoga. I gave my body the kindness it deserved. This physical care also helped my emotional healing. Choosing myself gave me the courage to pursue my passions again. I started painting, a hobby I had abandoned. Long ago, I found joy in creating colors on canvas. I joined a local art group and met people who shared my interests. This new connection lifted my spirits. I also learned to enjoy solitude. Being alone no longer felt lonely. It became a time to reflect, dream, and recharge. I read books that inspired me and listened to music that soothed my soul. I found comfort in my own company. This choice changed the way I saw my relationships. I no longer depended on others for validation. I understood that true connection comes from mutual respect and love. I became more patient and compassionate, not only toward others, but also toward myself. At times, choosing myself meant difficult conversations. I spoke honestly about my feelings with family and friends. Some understood, some did not, but I did not allow their opinions to shake my resolve. I knew this was my path. One day, my daughter-in-law tried to pull me back into old patterns. She accused me of being selfish and unrealistic. I listened calmly, but stood firm. I told her that choosing myself was necessary for my well-being and happiness. Her anger did not affect me as it once would. I realized that choosing myself was a form of empowerment. It gave me control over my life. It allowed me to define my worth and live by my values. This choice was not about rejecting others, but about embracing myself fully. With each passing day, I felt lighter and freer. I woke up with hope instead of dread. I smiled more often. I found peace in the small moments. Choosing myself opened a new chapter of healing and growth. I want you to know that choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. It is an act of courage and love. When you choose yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You create a space for healthy relationships and true happiness. If you feel lost or overwhelmed, I encourage you to start with small steps. Listen to your heart. Notice what brings you joy and what drains your energy. Say no when you need to. Say yes to things that nourish your soul. Remember, you deserve kindness, respect, and love, from others and from yourself. Choosing yourself is a journey, not a single moment. Be patient and gentle as you walk this path. I am grateful for the day I made this choice. It was the day I began to live authentically and with purpose. It was the day I embraced my true self. Thank you for sharing this part of my story. May it inspire you to choose yourself too. The morning light felt different that day. It was soft, gentle, and full of promise. I woke up slowly, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to savor the calm that had settled inside me. A new day had begun, and with it, a fresh chance to live fully. For a long time, mornings were difficult. They brought worries, memories, and fear. But this day was different. I felt a quiet strength as I stretched and opened the window to let in the fresh air. The world outside seemed peaceful, and so did I. I sat by the window with a cup of tea. The warmth spread through my hands and heart. I watched the trees sway gently in the breeze and listened to the birds singing. It was a simple moment, but it felt like a gift. As I sat there, I thought about everything I had been through. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness. I also thought about the growth, the healing, and the new strength I had found. It was not easy to reach this place, but I was here now. I smiled. Not because I forgot the past, but because I survived it. I survived the moments when I thought I could not go on. I survived the nights filled with tears and doubts. I survived the silence that once felt so heavy. This new day was a symbol. It was a sign that life continues, even after hardship. It reminded me that every morning brings a chance to start again, to make new choices, and to find happiness in unexpected places. I decided to take a walk outside. The sun was warm on my face, and the world felt alive. I noticed small things. The flowers beginning to bloom, children playing in the distance, and neighbors greeting each other with kindness. These simple joys had become precious to me. During the walk, I met an old friend. She smiled and asked how I was doing. I told her honestly that I was learning to live differently now. She listened with care and said, "You are shining in a new way. I see your strength." Her words touched me deeply. Sometimes we need others to see our journey, to remind us of how far we have come. It felt good to share a moment of connection, to know that I was not alone. When I returned home, I sat in my favorite chair and thought about my future. I realized I wanted to fill my days with things that mattered to me, things that brought joy, peace, and meaning. I wanted to nurture my creativity, spend time with people who lifted me up, and continue healing. I also knew I wanted to give back. My experiences had taught me empathy and understanding. I wanted to support others who felt lost or forgotten. I wanted to be a source of hope, just as I had found hope myself. This new day was not perfect. I knew challenges would come again. But I felt ready to face them with grace and courage. I was no longer afraid of being vulnerable or making mistakes. I was learning that strength is not about never falling, but about rising each time. In the afternoon, I called my daughter-in-law. We talked honestly and calmly. I told her I was choosing a new path, one where I respected myself and expected respect in return. It was a peaceful conversation, and I felt proud of how I stood my ground. Later, I wrote in my journal. Writing had become a daily habit, a way to clear my mind and express my feelings. I wrote about the new day, my hopes, and the lessons I had learned. Putting my thoughts on paper helped me see my progress and plan for the future. As evening came, I prepared a simple dinner and lit a candle. I ate slowly, enjoying each bite. I felt gratitude for the food, for the calm, and for the new beginning. After dinner, I sat quietly, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. Before bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a woman who had been through so much and still stood strong. I saw kindness in my eyes and courage in my smile. I whispered, "You are enough. You are worthy. You are loved." That night, I fell asleep with a peaceful heart. The new day had given me a gift, the gift of hope. It reminded me that no matter what happens, life goes on, and we have the power to create our own happiness. If you are listening to my story, I want you to remember this. Every day is a new day. No matter your past, no matter your pain, you can choose to live with hope and courage. You can smile, not because you forgot, but because you survived. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Tomorrow, we will continue together with a story about gratitude and reflection. The morning was quiet, and the house felt calm. I sat at my kitchen table, a warm cup of coffee in my hands, and I took a deep breath. Today, I wanted to focus on something important, saying thank you. Gratitude had become a gentle but powerful part of my healing. It helped me see the light even in dark times. As I thought about what to be thankful for, my mind traveled back to the people who had stayed by my side. My close friends, who listened when I needed to talk. The small acts of kindness from strangers. The moments of peace I found within myself. All these things made a difference. Saying thank you is not always easy. Sometimes, pride or pain holds us back. But I realize that gratitude is a gift we give ourselves. It opens the heart and softens the soul. When I said thank you, I felt a shift inside me, a quiet joy that warmed my spirit. I remembered a particular friend, Susan, who had been there during the hardest days. She never judged me. She only offered a hand and a kind word. I decided to call her. Hearing her voice lifted me instantly. We talked about life, hope, and new beginnings. I told her, "Thank you, Susan. You helped me more than you know." Her voice was gentle. "You are strong, Helen. I have always believed in you." That moment reminded me how important it is to speak our gratitude out loud. After our call, I wrote a letter to my daughter-in-law. Our relationship had been difficult, but I wanted to try to find peace. I wrote slowly and carefully. I thanked her for the times she showed kindness, even when things were hard. I did not expect a reply. This letter was for me, to release some of the anger and pain I had carried. Writing the letter made me think about the power of forgiveness. Saying thank you and forgiving are connected. They both free us from the weight of hurt. I was not ready to forgive completely, but I was opening a door. Later, I looked at my own reflection. I wanted to say thank you to myself, for the strength to keep going, for the courage to face the truth, and for the patience to heal. I whispered softly, "Thank you, Helen. You have come so far." Self-gratitude felt strange at first. We often forget to appreciate ourselves, but I realized it was necessary. Loving and thanking myself helped me feel whole again. During the afternoon, I took a walk in the park. The sun was warm, and the trees danced in the breeze. I thought about the small blessings in life, the smile of a stranger, the beauty of a flower, the sound of birds. These simple things bring light when the world feels heavy. I stopped by a bench and sat down. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. I gave thanks for the present moment, for the chance to breathe, and for the hope of tomorrow. Gratitude filled my heart like a soft melody. As evening approached, I prepared a small meal with fresh vegetables from the market. Cooking had become a joyful act, a way to care for myself. I thought about the meals I shared with family in the past. Some memories were painful, but others were warm and comforting. I decided to call my son. Our relationship had been strained, but I wanted to open a new chapter. I spoke honestly about my feelings and my hopes for the future. I told him I was thankful for the good times we shared, and I wanted to find a way to heal together. He was quiet at first, but then he said, "Thank you, Mom. I want that too." It was a small step, but a meaningful one. Saying thank you helped us both find a little peace. Before bed, I sat with my journal again. I wrote about the day, the people I was grateful for, and the feelings I discovered. Writing helped me understand myself better. It was a way to hold my emotions gently and clearly. I ended my entry with a promise to myself, to say thank you every day, for big things and small. Gratitude is not just for happy moments. It is for life itself. As I turned off the light and closed my eyes, I felt calm. The day of saying thank you had been a healing gift. It reminded me that even after pain and loss, there is still much to appreciate. There is still hope and kindness. If you are listening, I want you to try something simple today. Say thank you. Say it to someone who helped you, to a friend, or even to yourself. Notice how it feels to open your heart in gratitude. You might be surprised by the peace it brings. Thank you for being here with me today. Tomorrow, I will share a story about forgiving myself and letting go of guilt. Until then, take care of your heart. Forgiveness is a word that carries a heavy weight. For many years, I struggled to forgive myself. I blamed myself for things I could not change. I carried guilt like a heavy stone in my heart. Today, I want to tell you about the moment I started to forgive myself. It was not easy. It was slow, but it was necessary. I spent many nights awake, thinking about my past mistakes. I remembered times when I had hurt people I loved, even when I did not want to. I remembered moments when I felt weak and made poor choices. These memories filled me with sadness and regret. One evening, after a long day, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet, and the only light was from a small lamp. I held my hands together and whispered, "I am sorry, Helen. I am sorry for the pain I caused, and I am sorry for not being perfect." It was the first time I spoke those words out loud. At first, they felt strange, but then a small sense of relief came. Saying sorry to myself was the first step toward healing. Forgiving myself did not mean forgetting. It did not mean pretending that mistakes did not happen. It meant accepting that I am human. I am not perfect. I will make errors, but I can learn and grow. I remembered a moment when I had hurt my son. We had argued about something small, but the words were sharp. I had said things I did not mean. After that fight, I felt terrible. For years, I wished I could take back those words. One day, I decided to write a letter to my son, not to send, but to express my feelings. I wrote about my regret and my love. Writing helped me understand my emotions. It helped me forgive myself for being imperfect. Forgiveness also means letting go of guilt. Guilt is a heavy burden. It keeps us stuck in the past. It makes us feel unworthy of happiness. But I learned that guilt is not a chain. It is a feeling that we can release. I practiced telling myself, I am doing my best. It became a gentle reminder when I felt overwhelmed. I repeated it quietly like a prayer. Some days were harder than others. Forgiveness is not a straight path. It is a journey with ups and downs. There were moments when I doubted myself. I wondered if I deserved forgiveness at all. During these times, I reached out to a therapist. Talking to someone helped me see things more clearly. She taught me that self-forgiveness is an act of self-love. It is a way to heal the wounds that no one else can see. I also found comfort in meditation. Sitting quietly, focusing on my breath, and sending kindness to myself became a daily practice. It was like watering a small plant inside me, helping it grow stronger. One afternoon, I looked in the mirror and said, I forgive you. My eyes filled with tears. It was a beautiful moment. It was like a heavy door had opened, letting light flood in. Forgiving myself allowed me to open my heart to others again. I became more patient and kind. I stopped being so hard on myself. I learned to celebrate small victories instead of dwelling on failures. I want to share something important with you. If you carry guilt or regret, know that you are not alone. We all make mistakes. We all have moments we wish we could change, but you deserve forgiveness, just like I do. Try to speak gently to yourself. Imagine you are talking to a dear friend. Would you blame them forever? Or would you offer love and understanding? Give yourself the same kindness. Self-forgiveness also helps us forgive others. When we accept our own flaws, it becomes easier to accept the flaws in others. It opens the door to peace. Before I end this part, I want to encourage you to write a letter to yourself. Write about your regrets, your pain, and your hopes. Then write a message of forgiveness and love. Keep this letter safe. Read it when you feel burdened. Remember, forgiving yourself is a gift you give to your soul. It frees you from the past and allows you to live fully in the present. Tomorrow, I will tell you about feeling free, that moment when I felt light and alive again. Until then, be kind to yourself. You are worthy of love and forgiveness. Thank you for listening. Your journey is important, and I am honored to share mine with you. Freedom is a feeling that I had almost forgotten. For many years, I was trapped, not by bars or walls, but by my own fears and doubts. I carried the weight of expectations, mistakes, and broken relationships. But now, I want to tell you about the moment when I finally felt free. It was a simple moment, yet it changed everything. It began one quiet morning. The sun was just rising, casting soft light across my room. I woke up feeling lighter than I had in a long time. There was no heavy cloud in my mind, no knot in my heart. I felt calm, peaceful, and most importantly, free. I got out of bed and walked barefoot across the cool wooden floor. The feeling of the smooth wood against my skin was a small joy. I smiled because I realized I had not felt this simple pleasure in years. Freedom, I thought, is in the small moments, I went to my window and opened it wide. Fresh air came in, carrying the scent of flowers and grass. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I let the air fill my lungs, and then slowly breathe out. With every breath, I felt lighter. Walking barefoot, feeling the air, and breathing deeply became a kind of meditation. For me, it was a way to connect with the present moment. I learned that freedom is not only about escaping problems. It is about finding peace inside, no matter what is happening outside. That day, I put on my favorite dress and went outside. The sun was warm on my face. I walked to the garden and felt the grass under my feet. I stretched my arms wide and spun slowly, feeling the wind on my skin. I danced alone, with no music, just the sound of nature around me. The birds sang, and the leaves rustled gently. It was a simple dance, but it made me feel alive. I laughed, softly, feeling joy that I had thought was lost. Being free meant more than moving without limits. It meant letting go of fear. It meant trusting myself again. For so long, I had been afraid of what others thought. I worried about being judged or forgotten. But now, I knew that my value did not come from others' opinions. It came from within. Freedom also meant forgiving those who had hurt me and forgiving myself. It meant stopping the endless cycle of pain and anger. I chose peace instead. That afternoon, I sat by the old oak tree in my garden. I closed my eyes and felt the warm sun on my face. I thought about my journey, the pain, the tears, the moments of doubt. I thought about how far I had come. I realized that freedom was a gift I gave to myself. It was not something someone could take away. No one could control how I felt inside. I thought about you, the listener, and I wanted to share this feeling with you. Maybe you feel trapped right now. Maybe you carry pain or fear. I want you to know that freedom is possible. It begins with small steps. It begins with love for yourself. One way I found freedom was through simple daily rituals. Walking barefoot, breathing deeply, and moving my body slowly helped me feel connected. I encourage you to try this. Feel the ground under your feet. Take a deep breath and let go of worries. Move gently and smile. Freedom also means choosing joy. It means finding happiness in small things, a warm cup of tea, a kind word, a beautiful sunset. These moments remind us that life is full of gifts, even in hard times. That day, I promised myself to protect my freedom. I promised to say no when I needed to. I promised to choose peace over conflict. I promised to love myself without conditions. Feeling free gave me courage. I wanted to explore new places and meet new people. I wanted to learn and grow. I wanted to live fully, without holding back. At night, I wrote in my journal about freedom. I wrote about the lightness in my heart and the joy in my steps. Writing helped me hold on to this feeling. Before I sleep, I look at the stars and feel thankful. I am free, and that freedom is a treasure. I want you to remember that you can feel free too. Freedom is not about having everything perfect. It is about accepting yourself and your journey. It is about living with hope and courage. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. I hope you find your own freedom soon. It may come in small steps, but each step is a victory. Tomorrow I will tell you about knowing who I am, how embracing my true self changed my life. Until then, keep breathing, keep moving, and keep believing. You are not alone. You are free. Knowing who I am sounds like a simple thing, but for many years, I felt lost. I wore masks to please others. I hid my true feelings. I tried to be what others wanted me to be. It was exhausting. But now, I want to share the moment I found myself The moment I said, "I know who I am." It happened slowly, like the soft glow of dawn. I began to listen to my own voice inside. For so long I ignored it because I was afraid. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of failure. Afraid of being alone. Remember one evening sitting alone in my living room. The house was quiet. I held my favorite cup of tea and looked out the window. The sky was painted with soft pink and orange. I felt a strange peace. In that quiet moment, I asked myself a question. Who am I without all the noise? Without the expectations? Without the fear? The answer was not easy, but I started to hear small truths. I am a woman who has loved deeply. I am a woman who has made mistakes but learned from them. I am a woman who has strength even when she feels weak. I am a woman who deserves happiness and respect. Saying these words inside my heart gave me power. It was like lighting a candle in the dark. I felt my soul waking up. I began to write down what I discovered about myself. I wrote about my passions, my fears, my dreams, and my values. I saw patterns. I saw things I had forgotten. One passion I remembered was my love for art. Painting and drawing were my joys when I was young. Life had pushed that aside, but now I wanted to bring it back. I bought new brushes and colors and started to paint again. Painting helped me connect with myself. It was like speaking without words. When I painted, I felt free to be me. I also realized I valued honesty and kindness above all else. I wanted to surround myself with people who shared these values. I began to set boundaries with those who did not respect me. Knowing who I am also meant forgiving myself. I stopped blaming myself for past mistakes. I understood that every step, even the painful ones, helped shape me. I learned to say no when something did not feel right. For a long time, I said yes to please others and keep peace. But now, I put my well-being first. This change was not easy. Old habits tried to pull me back. Doubts whispered in my mind. But each time, I reminded myself, I know who I am. Friends noticed the change in me. They said I seemed calmer and more confident. I smiled because I felt it too. Confidence was not loud or arrogant. It was quiet and strong. Knowing myself gave me freedom. Freedom to choose my path. Freedom to speak my truth. Freedom to dream again. I also began to accept my age and the changes it brought. I stopped fighting wrinkles and gray hair. I embraced them as signs of my story and wisdom. I started to share my story with others. I wanted to inspire those who felt lost or invisible. I wanted them to know they were not alone. One day, my granddaughter asked me, "Grandma, what makes you happy?" I looked at her and said, "Knowing who I am makes me happy." She smiled and hugged me tightly. That moment was precious. It reminded me that self-knowledge is a gift we can pass on. I want to encourage you to find your own truth. It is never too late. Take time to listen to your heart. Write down your thoughts. Try old hobbies or new ones. Surround yourself with people who love and respect you. Remember, knowing who you are is a journey, not a destination. Be patient and kind to yourself. I promise you, the more you know yourself, the more joy and peace you will find. Life becomes clearer and more beautiful. As I finish this part, I feel grateful. Grateful for the journey. Grateful for the lessons. Grateful for the woman I have become. Tomorrow, I will share how I chose to live boldly, how courage helped me open new doors. Until then, keep listening, keep growing, and keep loving yourself. You are unique. You are valuable. You are enough. I want to end this story by speaking directly to you. This is my message, my heart speaking to yours. Life is full of challenges. Family can sometimes hurt us deeply. We can feel lost, invisible, and broken. But there is always hope. There is always strength inside you, waiting to be found. I know what it is like to feel unseen, to be misunderstood, to carry pain silently. I lived through moments when I doubted myself and my worth. Yet, through all of that, I learned one important truth. You are stronger than you think. The hardest part is often believing in yourself again. When others turn away or speak words that cut deep, it is easy to lose faith. But your story is not over. It is just beginning. You have the power to heal, to grow, to rewrite your story in your own way. It does not matter how old you are or how many mistakes you made. Every day is a new chance to choose yourself. Choosing yourself means listening to your own heart and needs. It means setting boundaries with people who do not respect you. It means forgiving yourself and letting go of guilt. It means chasing dreams, no matter how big or small. I want you to remember, you are worthy of love and respect. You are worthy of happiness and peace. You deserve to live a life that brings you joy. Life is not perfect, and people are not perfect either. But that is okay. We can find beauty in imperfection. We can find strength in vulnerability. We can find freedom in being authentic. Sometimes the people we love the most may disappoint us. They may say things that hurt or make us feel small, but that does not define who we are. Their words reflect their own fears and limitations, not your value. When I realized this, my heart began to heal. I stopped trying to please everyone. I stopped shrinking myself to fit into others' expectations. Instead, I started standing tall and speaking my truth. This journey of self-discovery and empowerment is not easy. It takes time, patience, and courage. You will have moments of doubt and sadness. That is natural. Be gentle with yourself during those times. Surround yourself with people who lift you up. Find friends who listen and understand. Find activities that make you feel alive. Take care of your body, mind, and soul. Remember to celebrate small victories. Every step forward is progress. Every moment of self-love is a victory. If you are struggling right now, please know you are not alone. Reach out for help if you need to. Talk to a friend, a counselor, or someone you trust. Sharing your feelings can lighten the load. I want to leave you with this final thought. Your life matters. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Do not let anyone silence you or make you feel invisible. Shine your light, even if it is just a small flicker at first. Keep believing in yourself. One day you will look back and see how far you have come. You will smile, knowing that you survived, you grew, and you thrived. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for opening your heart to mine. I hope it has given you hope, comfort, and courage. Before we finish, I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? What part of this story touched you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments or with someone you trust. If this story has inspired you, please subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, I have something very special saved just for you. Something full of hope and new beginnings. Remember, you are never alone. You are loved. You are enough. May your journey be filled with light, love, and peace.